Shalom. We're continuing Sefer melachim Beis. We're up to Perek Hey, and this is a section that's discussing the Navi Elisha and all of the different miracles that he did, and the fact that he was given the bracha of Pishnayim, of double what Eliyahu Navi did. And here too we have a haftarah for Parshas Tazria, which talks about Naaman. Now Naaman was a Syrian general, and indeed the pasuk says, "V'Naaman sar tzava melech Aram haya." Naaman was the chief general for the king of Syria. Ish gadol lifnei Adonav. He was a great man in the eyes of his master. Unesu panim, and he was treated with great favor. Ki bo nasan Hashem teshua li'aram, because it was through him that Aram achieved many victories. V'yoish haya gibur chayil, he was a very courageous warrior, but mitzayra nebuchi et saras. So the emissaries Chazal actually say that Naaman was the otherwise anonymous archer who killed Achav. You remember when the Yidden were fighting against Aram, so Achav knew they were after him, and he disguised as a common soldier, so nobody recognized him. And some person was just shooting an arrow at random. This was Naaman, and it actually killed Achav. So Naaman was the person, he got the biggie. He actually killed Achav in remote Gilad, and that's the Teshua Li'aram. But he was cursed with saras. Now the Emma says we know that saras is not really a medical condition, although it's the same. The word psoriasis comes from saras. It is an affliction of the flesh, a whiteness of the flesh, but it comes for spiritual reasons, such as lashon hara and the like. Other averos, gasus ruach, can come in different forms. There's saras of garments, there's saras of houses, there's saras of the flesh. There are other laws of saras if it's on the beard or the hair. Many, many different halachas of saras. And there's a ritual, not a medical ritual, there's a ritual that has to be followed for there to be Tyrus HaMitzayra. Now, obviously, Tsaras normally does not apply to non-Jews. It's a special Hanhaga HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for Am Yisrael. So this is what you might call a non-halachic Tsaras that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought to Naaman in order to make a Kiddush Hashem and show the godless of the Kayach of the Navi, who was a Navi b'Shem Hashem. V'aram yatsu gedudim. Although for a while there had been relative peace between Aram and Yisrael, there had been a few years of shalom, but what began was Aram didn't wage war against Malchus Yisrael, but they would send little groups of people to plunder, like hooligans. Vayishbu me'eretz Yisrael naira ketana. And in one of their exploits, they captured a young Jewish girl to be a slave for them. Vati lifnei eshes Naaman, and she was the servant girl for Naaman's wife. Vataymer el gevirta, and the servant girl gave Naaman's wife some information. Achalei Adoni lifnei hanavi. There's a great Navi in Eretz Yisrael. Let my master Naaman beg this Navi that is in Shomron, Oz Yasaf Oso Mitzarato, and the Navi, I'm sure, she has Emunah, will be able to cure him from his leprosy. Vayavai v'yaged li'adonav leimar, and people went and they told, Vayavai. So what happened was, the wife told Naaman, and Naaman, the pasuk is a little ambiguous here, who's speaking, but the way Rashi understands it, Vayavai v'yaged li'adonav, means Naaman went and told his master, i.e., the king, Kazais v'chazais dibra hanayra asher me'eretz Yisrael, that the young woman said, I should go to Elisha. Vayomer melech Aram, and the melech Aram said, Leich bai, go to Elisha and let him cure you. V'yesh lecha sefer al melech, I will send a letter to the melech Yisrael. Vayelech v'yikach b'yadei eser kikrei kesef. times, this is quite a lot, that Naaman took 10 kikars. In English they translate it as talents. That's many, many pounds. Each kikar is quite a lot, and this is 10 kikars of kesef. Sheishes alafim zahav, 6,000 gold pieces. Eser chalifais begadim, 10 changes of clothing. Vayave hasefer al melech Yisrael lemor, and a letter came to Melech Yisrael. And it says, the letter says, V'yata kavai hasefer azeh lecha, when you get this letter, Hine shalachti elecha es Naaman avdi. I am sending along with this letter and along with this tribute Naaman, my faithful servant, v'yasavto mitzarato, and all that I'm requesting is, doesn't mention the Navi here, you shall cure him, you shall heal him of his saras. Didn't mention the Navi, and anyway, the Navi is not something that Yehoram ben Achav would think of. Vayehi kikro melech Yisrael es hasefer. When the melech Yisrael reads that he is supposed to cure Naaman of saras, he said it's a trap. They're making impossible demands that if I don't keep, they're going to retaliate against me. Vayikra begadav. He ripped his garments in agony and pain. Vayomer ho'elokim ani. So he's makir Hashem. Am I God? Lahamis ulahachiyais. To kill or give life. Now again, he was not asked to kill or give life. He was asked to heal saras. But Chazal teach us a mitzayra is choshev kameis. So consequently, if somebody is b'tzaras, he's like he's dead. If somebody is healed from tzaras, it's like he's alive. And Yehoram ben Achav says, am I Hashem to give death or life? Ki zeh sholeach elai lesof ish mitzarato. That the king of Aram sends Naaman to me that I should heal him. So he tells his servants, he's doing this to trap me, meaning he knows I'm not going to be able to do it, and when I'm not able to do it, he'll claim I am defying him, and he'll use that as an excuse to kill me and maybe conquer my land. Vayehi kishmaya Elisha isha lokim kikara melech Yisrael es begadav. But when Elisha heard that the Melech Yisrael ripped up his garment because he had no belief that this is possible at all to cure Naaman. Vayishlach el HaMelech lemar. Elisha was very proactive. He sent a message to Yehoram ben Achav saying, Lama karata b'gadecha. Why did you rip your garment? You think that it's not possible to heal Naaman? Yavo na'ilai, let Naaman come to me. V'yeda, and he will know, and of course indirectly you will know, ki yesh navi b'Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given nevuah to Am Yisrael, and through the kayach of nevuah Hashem gives abilities to be meshana the teva. V'yavai Naaman. So Naaman now comes b'susav u'b'richba, with his horses and with his chariots. V'yamod Pesach habayit Elisha, and he's standing outside of the door of Elisha's house. V'yishlach elav Elisha malach. Elisha does not talk to him directly, but Elisha sends him a shaliach. Malach here means shaliach. And the shaliach gives one instruction, a very simple instruction. Haloch v'rachatzta sheva pa'amim b'Yarden. Go and dip yourself 7 times in the Yarden River. V'yashad b'sarcha l'cha u'tahar. And your flesh shall return to you. The whiteness shall leave, and your flesh shall be restored, and you will be pure. That's all. V'yiktseif Naaman. Naaman was very angry, because if you just told me to take a bath, v'yelech v'yomer hinei amarti elai, I thought I'd have a segula. Yetzei yotzai v'yamad v'kara b'shem Hashem elokav. I thought I would have the Navi daven for me. Or Heinif Yadai Alamaka, he would wave his hand over the place of the tzaras, V'yasav HaMitzayra. I wanted the Navi to do something, to pray, to do a miracle, to wave his hands. Like today, people look for segulas. What is he telling me? Take a bath in a river? Hello. Toiv Amanau Parpar Naharos Damesek. Mikol Meimim Israel. The beautiful rivers of Amana and Parpar near Damascus is more beautiful. The water is a better quality than all the rivers of Israel. Hello, Erchatz Bahem V'Taharti. If this would help, I would bathe in them. So he thought Elisha's not giving him any solution. Vayifen v'yelech b'chema. He turned away and he left Elisha with anger. Vayikshu avodav vayidabru elav. But his servants came to him and they spoke to him and they said, listen, why didn't you try it out? Vayomru. Avi is father, but it's a title of respect, like master. Maybe it's a sign that he treated his servants very well. I don't know. It is unusual for slaves to call their master Avi in Tanakh, but this is one case where they did it. Davor gadol hanavi dibre lecha loitasa. Let's say Elisha would have asked you to do something hard. What if he would have told you to fast for a month? Something that looks like it's a religious thing. You would do it. You would do something even if it was hard and difficult, if the Navi asked you to do it. So if you're willing to do something hard, why don't you do something easy? Now again, it's interesting that B'Teva, we think, if it's easy, it doesn't have any significance. But they're using a Kal V'Chomer. If you were willing to do something hard, then why not do something easy? All right, so he did it. Vayeret, vayitbail b'Yarden sheva pa'amim kivarish Elokim. He went and he was toivel in the Yarden 7 times. Vayoshav b'sarai kipsar nar katan. His skin came back smooth and clear like a young child. Vayitar. And he was purified. He became pure and clean from the tzaras. It was a miracle, Taka. Vayoshav Elisha Lukim. He went back to the man of God, to the Navi, Hu b'chol machaneu, he and all of his people, his soldiers, his slaves. Vayavai v'yamid lefanav. And he stood before Elisha, Vayomer, and he said, and this is the reason why this nace happened to this guy, Hine na yadaiti, ki ein Elokim b'chol haaretz, ki im b'Yisrael. There is no God other than the God of Israel. Because all of the years in Aram, with all of the Avodah Zaras, there was no refuah. And it is only your God that brought refuah. There is no one else. V'yata, kachna bracha meyesavtecha. Now he's giving him the gifts. All of the gifts, all of the wealth that I brought, please take this as a gift. Vayomer. And Elisha said, Chai Hashem asher amarati lefanav. But I swear by the life of God that I stand before and serve, im ekach, that I will not take it. Vayifzer bar lekachas. And Naaman put pressure on Elisha to take it. Vayima'en, and Elisha refused. So Lamaisa, the Mefarshim do have a kasha, that Bishlama Shmuel Hanavi always refused any type of compensation, any type of hospitality. He had to be totally independent. But Elisha had the hanhaga of taking matanes. So why doesn't he take the matanes from Naaman? So there are 2 possible answers here. One answer is that although Elisha did take general hospitality, food, lodging, he did not take payment for the miracles that were done. Because the miracles all came from Hashem, Elisha did not want to get paid for what were the godless and the kochos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's a chiluk between general hospitality and food and getting paid for Maisa Nisim. The second pshat that Rashi says is that since Naaman was an Oved Avodah Zarah, in all of his wealth, there could have been some money that was connected to the sale of idolatry that was mixed in, and since the money of an Avodah Zarah is Asur Bahana, there may have been Demei Avodah Zarah Mu'ravin by, and it's not Batul B'Shishim, even if it's only 1 out of 1,000, you're not allowed to get benefit from the money. So whatever it is, Elisha did not take any of that wealth. Vayomer Naaman, but then Naaman said, V'lo yutan noli avdecha masat semed pradim adama. So you don't want to take what I'm giving you, but I'm asking you for a favor. Can I take back to Aram a load of 2 mules carrying ophor, carrying dirt from Eretz Yisrael? Ki lo, in other words, he wanted a remembrance of the dirt of Eretz Yisrael, just as people want to be buried with that dirt. Ki lo yasa oid avdecha oila v'zavach le'elohim acherim ki yem lashem. Because of this experience, I will no longer bring any korban to any other small g God other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let me just point out an interesting halacha that's nogea even today. Even though the Beis HaMikdash, once you have a Beis HaMikdash, bamais for Hashem are prohibited, and that's even after the Chorban. So Bizman Hazeh, we're not allowed to make a bama, but non-Jews are allowed to have bamais, even Bizman Abayis. So paradoxically, even today, a goy could be makrif korbanos in his backyard, l'shem Hashem, and Naaman, Bisman HaMikdash, was allowed to have bamas as well. So Naaman's statement, I will not bring a korban except to Hashem, is actually halachically permitted. But Naaman has a strange qualification on his statement. Ledavor hazeh yislach Hashem liavdecha. But there's one thing that I need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to forgive me. Because even though I'm not going to worship Avodah Zarah, but b'vay adayni beis rimon leishtachavay shama, Rimon, same word for pomegranate, was the name of one of the gods of Aram. And when the king is Ben-Hadad, goes to worship in the temple of Rimon and bows down, Fahu nishan al yodi, he's weak and an older man, so he can't really get up and down. I have to bring him up and down. And when he bows down, I have to go on the ground with him, hold him, position him, so it looks as if I'm bowing to the idol as well, even though I'm not. V'hu nishan al yadi, he's leaning on me. Vishtachavesi beis rimon, and I therefore have to prostrate myself in Beis Rimon, the temple of the god Rimon. Vishtachavayasi Beis Rimon, but I am telling you as the Navi that this should be my prayer to Hashem, that I should be forgiven because my intention is not to worship the idol. Yislach no Hashem li'avdecha b'davar zeh. Now, halachically, what's going on here? I mean, you're not allowed to do something that even has the appearance of Avodah Zarah. That would be Yehareg v'al Yavor. A Jew would have to give his life before he would do this. So is Naaman doing something he's allowed to do? But is he doing something he's not allowed to do? So the Emes says this is totally in a very big sugya. According to the Maskana of the Gemara in Sanhedrin, a ben Nayach is not mechuyev to give up his life. So consequently, a ben Nayach is allowed to give the appearance of bowing down to an idol to save his life, because the chiyuv of Mesiras Nefesh of Kiddush Hashem is miyuchad only to a Jew and not to a guy. So actually what Naaman is explaining is something he is allowed to do. And that's why Elisha indeed says to him, V'yomer lo lech l'shalom, go in peace, v'yelech mito kivras aretz. And Naaman traveled the distance that took him back to Aram. So now we have the final act, and that is Gehazi says something. V'yomer Gehazi nar Elisha ish Elokim. Gehazi, who is the servant of Elisha, the ish Elokim, Hine chosach Adoni esnaman arami azeh mikachas miyades asher hevi. L'chayra, you gave Naaman a big break. You spared him from paying all of the wealth that he brought to give you. Chai Hashem, ki imratzti acharav, v'lakachti mi'itai mi'uma. By the life of Hashem, I would keep your instruction, and if, he's kind of saying a strange thing, that I will run after him. Okay, so the pasuk is very, very difficult to translate. The way the Mitzudas interprets it is that essentially Gehazi is talking to himself. He's not talking to Elisha. He's basically saying, my master did a stupid thing. Gehazi brought all of this wealth. Naaman brought all of this wealth, and my master said, you don't have to give it to me. So Gehazi is swearing to himself, by the life of God, I'm going to run after him, and I'm going to get that wealth. He didn't tell Elisha this. He said it to himself. So the pasuk says, Vayirdav Gehazi acharei Naaman. Gehazi runs after Naaman. Vayira Naaman ratz acharav. Naaman sees Gehazi is trying to reach him. Vayipal mi'alim merkav l'graso. He thinks he's a shaliach of Elisha, and he literally jumps off his chariot to greet him and to honor him. Vayomer hashalom, is everything okay? Vayomer, and Gehazi says, Shalom ad shalom, everything is fine. Adoni shalachani, this is a lie. My master sent me to you, Lamor. That even though he turned down the wealth, but this is what Elisha said. There were two young people of the Bnei Hanavim who came from the mountains of Ephraim, and they're very poor. So my master said, maybe we do need the stuff that you brought to make a parnasa for these poor people. To nalo lahem kikar kesef. So not everything. Gehazi is not asking for everything that Naaman brought, but for some things. Give us 1 talent of silver instead of 10, ushtei chalifos begadim, and 2 changes of clothing. Vayomer Naaman. So Naaman says, listen, I'll give you more than that. Hayil kach kikarayim, take 2 kikars of clothing. Vayiftzar bo. So Gehazi is playing hard to get. He says, oh no, I don't want that. Of course, he's very, very much wants everything. But Naaman presses him. Vayotzar kikarayim kesef b'shnei charitim. He wrapped up the 2 kikars in the garments, in garments, and that's in addition to 2 chalifos begadim. Vayitein el shnei na'arav. And this is heavy. It was given by 2 of his own youths. In other words, Naaman sent 2 of his own people to carry this. Vayisu lefanav. And they were carrying it in front of Gehazi like an honor guard. Vayavai el ha'eifel. And Gehazi came to Eifel. Eifel is a certain tower on the way. Vayikach miyadam. So Gehazi didn't want to bring it to where Elisha could see it. Gehazi had a hiding place. Vayifkod b'bayis. There was a certain tower, and there was a house next to the tower, and Gehazi concealed the stuff in the house next to the tower. Vayishalach es ha'anashim. And he told Naaman's 2 people to go back. Vayilechu. So Gehazi hid the wealth. V'hu ba v'yamod al adonav. And then he reported to Elisha. Vayomer elav Elisha. Elisha said to him, Me'ayin Gehazi, where are you coming from, Gehazi? I haven't seen you around for a while. Elisha knew, but he wanted to see if Gehazi would do tshuva. Vayomer, and Gehazi said, Lai halach, I didn't go anywhere. Anaviyana, I was wandering around in no particular place. Vayomer elav. Elisha says to Gehazi, you think I don't know what you did? Lo libi halach kasher hafach ish me'al merkavto likrasecha? Do you think my heart, my mind, my knowledge was not there when a certain man that we both know jumped off his chariot to greet you? Ha'es lakachas es hakesef lakachas habegadim? Do you think my spirit was not there when you took the silver, when you took the begadim, which he did take, but then it goes on and says, v'zeisim uchramim, and the olives and the vineyards, actually probably means olive trees, and the tson and the bakar and the sheep and the cattle, v'avadim ushvachais, and the male servants and the female servants. Now the kasha is obviously very obvious, and that is, Gehazi didn't take that. Gehazi only took the kikarayim of silver and the chalifas begadim. So the Targum Yonasan basically says that it just means you were going to use the money to buy all of these things and to become a wealthy man. And number one, you lied. And number two, you're taking something that I felt one should not take. So because of this, Gehazi was cursed. B'tsaras naman tidbak b'cha u'b'zaracha liolam. As a result of the Chilul Hashem, of your lying, of your stealing, and the Chilul Hashem, because Naaman is going to think that prophets charge for their services, and it's a matter of money instead of serving Hashem. So you will get the tsaras of Naaman, and it will remain on your children, liolam, forever. So again, there is a machlekes. This does not mean, ad olam does not mean, the Radak says, it'll be forever, but it's just Gehazi and his sons will have tsaras for the rest of their lives, but it will not go to the next generation. And indeed, later we're going to read about 4 Mitzrayim, and Chazal say the 4 Mitzrayim are Gehazi ubanav, and Saras Naaman tidbak b'cha v'zaracha liolam, and indeed vayetze milafanav Mitzrayim keshalak. That very moment, Gehazi was a Mitzrayim as white as the snow. So that is the end of Perek Hey.